I thought for a second about becoming the first shirtless dancer here and seeing who would be the first follow-up leader. They said no. I want to ask you a question. By a show of hands today, how many of you recognize this logo? Show of hands. Not too many, about half. Thought it would have been more. I'm going to guess that either maybe you're a little shy right now or not from the area, because that is Tommy Hilfiger. He's a local native from the Elmira area. He built a fashion apparel brand to prominence in the 80s and 90s. I actually remember one of my earliest Tommy Hilfiger experiences. I was going to school, 7th grade, with my sister and my mother in the family van, and we pulled up to the front stoop, and there was this girl named Melissa. I remember this very vividly. Melissa was wearing a white Tommy Hilfiger shirt with this logo on it, and I looked at her, I looked at my mom, I said, "Mom, are you serious? Melissa is allowed to wear Tommy Hilfiger? I can't wear Tommy Hilfiger?" We got in this huge argument. I was this kid looking for fashionable approval amongst my peers, but my mom, she didn't see the value in spending $25, $30 for a logo with a t-shirt on it, or a t-shirt with a logo on it. Bickering ensued. She wins. She's a good mother, very stern. However, I was also a preteen with really tried hard for this. Finally, first day of school, 8th grade, I won. You'd see me here. I got my Tommy Hilfiger long sleeve on, Tommy logo on the shirt, got my Tommy jeans on. I'm all smiles, right? The reason is, well, what's interesting is I didn't know why I was wearing Tommy Hilfiger. I didn't know what it meant or where it came from. I just knew that's what I needed to fit in. And I think that's the norm with mainstream fashion today. We buy what makes us feel good about ourselves. Maybe that's a unique self-expression, or in my case, it was to impress others. And I think that's what the big brands have been selling us, a version of us, or a perceived us for years. And don't get me wrong, there's some good pieces to self-expression, confidence that come from this. But as a whole, I don't think just about us is good enough. So I want to ask you another question. By a show of hands, maybe I'll ask this one in reverse, since it'll be a little easier this time. How many of you do not own a t-shirt? Raise your hand if you do not own a t-shirt. 2, excellent. Maybe you guys can think of a different piece of apparel, but I want all of the rest of you to actually picture right now, picture your favorite t-shirt. Go ahead, picture your favorite t-shirt. What is your favorite t-shirt? Now that you have an image of it, I want you to think about why that's your favorite t-shirt. Why is that t-shirt you're thinking about your favorite t-shirt? More than likely, it has nothing to do with the actual fabric itself. There's plenty of cotton shirts out there, but it has to do with the connection you have to it, an emotional connection you have to what it represents. And I think what's critical here is that it's not about us, it's about how we connect to our world around us. That represents something in our world, but not us ourselves. And we need to utilize that. We need to utilize that emotion and that actual wanting to connect to our world around us and bring that together through apparel. And so I want to show you this graph here. This is called a life cycle model graph, and this is a really simple version of it. The early adopters, white as consumers in the United States, early adopters is a small percentage of the map, and as you move right, you have the majority. This is fashion with a purpose, and the early adopters I'll classify as people that buy eco-friendly. Maybe something that's healthy for the earth, or fair trade would be the garments themselves are made by people that are paid fair wages. In the area I work in, which is philanthropic, where that actual apparel gives back to something you care about. In the majority, the mainstream brands today, these big box, these lifestyle brands like Forever 21, American Eagle, Abercrombie, these are the brands that kind of sell us different versions of us, and that's what's mainstream. And there's a gap between the two. Call that the chasm. And the chasm exists because us, in the mainstream, as they've been selling it to us, we don't see the value in these other things as a whole. We don't see, why should we pay more for that, right? Or maybe I'm uneducated, and we haven't been educated on that yet. The majority doesn't share this with us. But today's different than it was 10, 15 years ago when I was a child. Today we live in an online world, which is inherently more connected, right? And I want to tell you about 2 things I think will impact fashion, e-commerce and social media. And you're looking at me, especially these younger Corning kids, you're like, I know what e-commerce is, I know what social media is. It's pretty simple, right? But I want to think about it maybe in a little different way than you've thought about it before. Because e-commerce, it's an opportunity. It's an opportunity not to shop on a clothing rack and say, how does this look on me? How does this look on me? How does this look on me? We shop in the internet. We shop on a browser, and I love the browser because the browser is a canvas to tell a story. We can do anything with a browser today. And what we do at Selfless Tea, we create a unique design, something fashionable based on a particular cause. In this example right here, the design is called Hugs Not Slugs, which represents an organization that tries to end child abuse. And then it's a $22 T-shirt. $7 goes back toward ending child abuse. And we tell the story of why that's a problem here and what we can do about it, what this tee can do to help. And we do that through words and through more interaction and through video, actually. So all of a sudden, you have this piece of apparel that has a little bit more emotion behind it, a little bit more connection to the world behind you. And it actually looks good. Second is social media. Social media, I love because it levels the playing field. What do we do with social media? Well, we share what's of value to us, right? We are in control of the content more than ever. You share with your friends what you want them to see. So we tweet, we pin any stories that are worth spreading. So the big brands with $1 million budgets, they aren't the only things in front of our faces anymore. The big guys and the little guys can come together, or can come together in the same playing field, and anybody can win. Anybody can win. And I have some examples of some stories that have really resonated with me in the work that we've done. One, I think, in the wake of Hurricane Sandy. Last year, Hurricane Irene hit this area, upstate New York, and Vermont actually particularly hard. And in Vermont, a movement was started called I Am Vermont Strong, which was the idea of Vermonters binding together around a common cause to help each other. And what we did at Selfless Tea, we partnered with I Am Vermont Strong to create a piece of apparel. And we sold that apparel online, and purely it sped through social media for the coming days and weeks. And we raised over $20,000, and over 25,000 Vermonters from the food bank were fed just through this apparel. And I think that in itself is a nice story, but what was more exciting was that the people that were wearing it, how they were connecting and resonating to it as a piece of fashionable apparel that they loved. My favorite example is the Seeley family here on the front left. The Seeleys wore these shirts, and this was their picture that they sent on their Christmas cards to all their friends and families across the nation. Using these tools, I think this can become possible, but I also think there's another big barrier in this chasm, which is that feeling of sacrifice that we have to give up. Maybe we have to spend way too much, or we don't understand the lack of education to become maybe an early adopter. And I was thinking about this a bit. I think I'd like to correlate it to the food industry, where we're becoming a more obese nation, and we are buying processed and eating processed food. So you can't walk up to someone at McDonald's and say to them, "Hey, that Big Mac looks really good, but I think you should be going to buy that organic garden salad from Healthy Food R Us," whatever you want to call it. It's going to be $8, not $3, but it's going to be better for you. It's going to be more healthy. You got to promise me. What are you going to do? You're going to look like you're an idiot, right? Like, no, of course not, because you're asking me to give up something of way too much value to me at the moment. You can't do that in the food industry. You can't do that in the apparel industry, okay? So I'm a competitive person, and I truly believe this is what we're doing online, but I kind of wanted to test it out on the ground level a little bit more as I was thinking about this talk. So I took one of my favorite T-shirts, the one I'm wearing today, and this one called Feel Good, which represents an organization that sells grilled cheese on college campuses, and then the proceeds from those grilled cheese that they sell goes towards ending world hunger. They've raised over $1 million. It's a great organization. So what I did is I went on the streets of a place called The Melt in San Francisco. It's a great grilled cheese joint. You can play this video. And no joke, this is the first person that came by. I was like, "Hey, is that a grilled cheese you have in your hand?" She's like, "Yeah, it is." I was like, "Do you love grilled cheese?" She's like, "Yeah." I was like, "Awesome. Do you wear T-shirts?" She's like, "Yeah, I do." She looks at me a little weird. I was like, "Well, do you wear, you like fashionable tees?" She's like, "Yeah, of course, I like that." I was like, "Well, what do you think about the shirt my camera guy's got on?" I pointed over there. She's like, "Oh my gosh, what a great T-shirt." I was like, "Yeah, it totally is. It's totally a great T-shirt." So I was like, "Hey, guess what? This T-shirt actually means a little bit more. It's not just a T-shirt." I was like, "Well, it looks good. $20 T-shirt, $7 goes back to ending world hunger through the grilled cheese. You love grilled cheese, right?" She's like, "Yeah." So we talked about it a little bit more. I was like, "Hey, happen to have one on me. Would you be interested?" And she's like, "Okay, yeah." We talked about it a little bit more, and on the spot, her name's Emily. Emily actually bought this shirt. Emily, for the first time, had learned about what her apparel can do, and she's like, "I love grilled cheese," and she found a connection in that grilled cheese. This shirt now represents her giving back to ending world hunger for the first time. She's like, "This is great. This is cool." But what's interesting is I think that it's bigger than this shirt, though. It's bigger than the shirt, because I had a little trouble with the credit card, and I charged her 3 times. It's true. That's another less social aspect of our business, but it's bigger than the shirt itself, okay? That shirt is a catalyst, because now she has the idea that her fashion, that what she wears, can contribute to her world around her, you see? Stories like this are the ones that keep me moving, keep me motivated, and 2 months ago, we did a photo shoot with this shirt you see here called Save Turtles. We were doing a photo shoot, and we're in line, in an ice cream line, and there was a boy kind of upset with his mother in an ice cream line. And I know it sounds weird, boy, ice cream, upset, but it happened. And the mother said, "Hey, look at this shirt. It looks cool." And she's like, and the boy kind of acknowledged it, but didn't really say anything. But I saw the interaction. I gave her my card. I was like, "It's a cool shirt. It does something a little different." And then a few days later, I noticed a purchase on our back end. And I said, "Hey, are you the mother from the ice cream line?" She's like, "Yeah, I am. I read about the story on the product page, and I thought it was the coolest thing. I bought it for my son. His name's Jared." I'm like, "Oh, that's great. I love stories like that." Probably worked twice as hard that day after that. But a week later, she emails me again after she got the shirt. She said, "Hey, just want to let you know that my son Jared, I gave him the shirt today. And I gave him the shirt, and I told him what it's about. I told him that the shirt gave back to an organization, $7, and with that organization was able to save 7 sea turtle eggs from poachers. And that's what, in the design, those 7 sea turtles in the design represent the 7 sea turtles that Jared had saved." And Jared goes, "What? I've saved 7 turtles? This is awesome." And so he's like, wearing his shirt all the time. He's telling his friends. She can hardly keep it clean on him, she says. I was like, "Oh, that's great. I love that." And I thought about this parable because it's a very similar situation. His mom and my mother was 15 years ago, where my mother was in a position where I wanted something and she didn't see the value. There was no deeper meaning to what she was buying. But Jared's mom saw something completely differently. Jared's mom saw an opportunity to instill a value in her son, that her son could participate in this world. No matter how big or small he was, he can partake in his world around him. And I think that's what, when we see these tools coming together, that we have this chasm, this niche, and this mainstream. And once we start supplying, we put these new tools into action, and we're able to start closing this gap, this chasm. And then once we see that we don't have to sacrifice anything, to give anything up to jump that gap, we get people like Emily and Jared. They're jumping that gap. They're no longer part of the majority. They're becoming part of the early adopters. And once we start getting people jumping that gap, we no longer have we have a new majority. We no longer have early adopters. We have a new majority. We have a new mainstream. And I think that's a more connected mainstream. It's a better form of self-expression. And I think a better form of self-expression, a more connected world, we start creating a better world. Thank you.